my name's Allison, and Michael will join us shortly. And this week we're talking about our gifts and how we use them, and how we all have individual strengths and beauty and things that we can offer that are God-given, that we believe that we can share with others. And Michael, you want to tell us more about that? About your sermon from Sunday for those who didn't get to hear, didn't see it?
Yeah, it's working. Sunday. What do we talk about Sunday?
I just said it all,
yeah.
But you have to say it better.
I have to say it better. Say better things. We've been talking about generosity. We're using the three little pigs as the analogy, like that. Those are our root stories, and rooted in our faith is this idea that we're generous with our money, our resources, our time. And then this week was kind of words, I believe we're supposed to be generous with our life. And what I mean by that, not just time and money, but our experiences, our talents, whether they're God-given or nurtured or developed. And then generous with our experience too, because who we are is just a makeup of our stories, our experiences, and the things we do describe us but don't define us type thing. So how are we generous with those? Does that work?
Yeah. So I wonder if anybody out there, because what I started thinking about with this whole thing is most of the time people think about their jobs and what they do vocationally when it comes to, am I using my strengths or gifts like wisely, appropriately? Mm-hmm. And so I wonder if anybody's either been in a job before, I know everybody's probably been in a job before, where you didn't feel like you were using your gifts as you thought maybe it would be most useful or most helpful, and then, or are you right now in that situation, and how do we reconcile that? Because I feel like in America we're told the American dream, like you're supposed to find something you love and you're passionate about and go do that. And like, I'm sorry, but if certain jobs are,
well, I think the issue comes in.
Do certain things. I'm not going to name certain things because for some people maybe they can do them passionately, but there are jobs that are just a means to an end. Like,
well, we were told you can be anything you want, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but just because you can be doesn't mean you should be. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should be doing a thing.
Well, that, or just like the expectation that I feel like sort of embedded in us here is that we should be passionate about whatever it is we're doing. Like the American dream is do your thing that you're passionate about and go make a living at it. Like you're freedom to go do that. You're not told what you have to do vocationally. And so then if you're like not doing that and you find yourself in a job where it's kind of like you kind of feel like you're missing your thing. Like you missed your boat. You missed your opportunity to really do the right thing.
So then
sets up disappointment a little bit, I think.
This is where so you and I were talking about this, I think, last week a little bit. I may have said it in the sermon, I can't remember. But when your passion, so we got to stop defining ourselves by what we do. That's the first thing, right? Like we are not, and I had a story about in the very first book of the Bible. Well, the very first was Genesis, but the first book written was Exodus. And so our religious faith origins are that we came from slaves, right? So our faith origins are from slavery. And when they were slaves, they were brick makers, and so they identified as brick makers, right? And during this process, the first lesson, or the major lesson that is taught in that book of Exodus is, no, you're not that. You're something else. And so so you're doing that, but you're not that. Yeah, you can do other things, right? So that's something you do. You're good at it, but your true passions are this thing over here. And so almost half of the book of Exodus are these descriptions about how they build a temple. Focusing. It's getting them to focus on their faith, and that faith is something we create, and faith is something that it's creative by nature. So I believe that when we're fostering when we're creating new things, we're also fostering our faith. So that can happen in what you do, but often I find it is that's something else that you do, and this then becomes part of the purpose of church or community, right? The thing you're passionate about is what you do in your community. The thing you do for money doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're passionate about. And so, because also statistically, some people find their passion and they think they want to do it for a job, and then you attach money to it or a paycheck to it, and it ruins it. because there's this creative side, you want to do this creative thing, but then when there's pressure applied, often creativity is stomped by pressure or by money or whatever else. And so
because all of a sudden you're not doing it for your own enjoyment.
Right.
It's like somebody's judging what I'm doing right now, and I have to do a good job or else my employer's not
Right.
going to be happy with me.
Yeah. So I think, now you and I are crazy and chose this line of work, right? But not everybody. You're like, maybe. But I think you can find your passion and just stop defining yourself as a vocation. This is one of the things that describe me. I do for money, but my passion. So I always ask the question, what do you do for fun, right? What charges you? What excites you? And then I get the real answer about who people are, right? But specifically, that's not, I've been on mission trips in other parts, mainly third world countries, because not everybody has a lot, they might farm and raise their own produce and stuff. And so when you ask them what they do, right, it's completely different. It's not the bricks they make or the widget or digits they measure or whatever your job is. It's more than that. And so I think there's kind of two parts to this. One, I shouldn't say that. We should stop identifying by the thing we do, but then we have to then do things that bring out what I would say is this creative nature within us. But that's hard language because a lot of people say, well, I'm not a creative person.
Yeah, creative can mean different things to different people.
I believe that creation, and even our story of creation we read in Genesis, is about ongoing creation. It's not... Creation isn't, it was created and it's done. Creation is something that should happen all the time. We're constantly creating new things and participating in new things but that has to come out of us. It's part of our core, our makeup. I don't know. What do y'all think about creative people?
Has anybody said anything about past jobs? Because I'm interested.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what was your very first job? Because I think that's so funny to hear it and what someone's very first job was. What was my first job? I prepared tax returns, prepared meaning copied things and stapled things.
Okay.
So it was a seasonal job and I was copying basically the whole time.
So first, outside of mowing grass and paper routes?
Paid with a boss, W-2 kind of situation.
I roofed houses at
Okay.
13 or 14.
That's hard work.
It's awful.
Todd did that one
Yeah.
summer and that's really hard work.
That was my first official job. I worked for a real estate investor, and I roofed houses. And then one time, the house that he had bought had foundation problems, and I'm 14. Of course, I hit puberty at 7, so I was a full-grown man at 13.
You were a man grown.
So you see, child labor, yeah, but back then it wasn't a thing. And so I dug out the foundation of a house with a shovel.
Oh my gosh.
All the way around the house. 2 feet wide, 6 feet deep, and then we got a big old jack inside.
To shore it up, you were trying to fix this foundation?
Yeah, so we dug it out, not all 3 sides, but on 2 sides, and we had pushed 2 walls out. We took a jack. Again, these aren't the same things, but this investor, he taught me a lot, but we pushed the walls out, and then put drain tile in, and put beams up and everything, yeah.
Amy, what was your favorite job? First job, sorry, not favorite.
I babysat.
Babysitting.
For lots of families.
Yeah.
Denise, her first job was Taco Bell.
Nice.
Chuck worked at an auto auction moving cars around. It's where he learned how to drive a stick. Kendall worked at Highboy. And she's
With me?
too, but you didn't know each other or remember each other.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Ashley was a receptionist for a construction company at age 15.
Huh. You know what? Fast food is hard too. Hard in a different way than roofing, but my son works fast food and he comes home smelling like a grease pit. You're just take off your clothes, and then the dog wants to lick his shoes, and I'm like, so
Yeah, but he works at Chick-fil-A. You sometimes just go over and smell them, though?
No, it's not a good smell at all.
Oh.
It really isn't a good smell.
Paul worked at Yale University, moving lab specimens from one room to another.
Oh, okay. Transporting things. Hopefully they weren't dangerous, deadly.
Yeah, did you have the hazmat suited up?
Yeah, did you have to have a hazmat suit? That'd be interesting to know. I mean, those things, it's like you learn a ton, but obviously for most of us, we move on from our first job and that doesn't necessarily define who we are. I think that that's pretty freeing, that if you can think about it that way of, yeah, this is what I do, I provide for my family this way, but here's who I am, here's what melts my butter,
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
And then the question becomes, what's the mechanism to get us to figure those things out?
Yeah, most people don't. I feel like a lot
Well,
of
and-
people just don't.
And you have counselors in high school, but you know, I have a daughter. You have a daughter in college too, and I love our school district and our system. But when I was in the corporate side, we implemented stuff like this. So we gave and we do it as a church too. Like we gave personality tests, and you know, I learned all this on the corporate side before coming to church, because now we do it as a church. But there's not a lot of tools in our arsenal as a culture, at least here in America, to try to figure out who are we and what are we good at. Now, you are seeing the emergence of people like life coaches. Like there's a whole field of vocation that is emerging right now to try to help people figure this out. But I think in general, we're not good at it. And our schools have and when you're 17 or 18, you're going to change so much. So our process is you go to college to learn a thing that supposedly you're going to be passionate about, and then what happens? Like 75% of all people don't use their degree, right?
Both me and my husband. I mean, like, I really wish the whole gap year thing was normal and like all kids had to go get work experience before they could apply to college, because oh my gosh, I had no idea. And I just fell into something, I got a degree in it, fell into it. Don't like it, never did, like, and don't use it.
This is why I'm big on freshman internships. Like, I was able to do that in engineering, and I wouldn't realize I didn't want to be an engineer.
Like, I can't sit at this.
But I didn't know. Like, I love the math and the science and working. Like, I love that part of it. It's just I could do it. It was the culture and environment of the engineer firm, which I think Chuck's gonna get mad at me again, but I couldn't because Chuck's an engineer.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. But it just wasn't. I was all about relationships and meeting people, all this stuff. And so, Amy, you were laughing a minute ago. What were you laughing at?
Chuck liked your melts your butter comment.
Is that what you said? What melts your butter?
Yeah.
What sinks your sub?
Yeah.
Like what? Yeah.
I've never heard that one, but okay. Okay. I mean, and I think a lot of people never do figure that out. Or if they think they do, they're afraid to pursue it. Like, they're like, oh, that's silly. Like, I don't know, I can't go be an ice dancer. That would never work, even if that's in my heart, it's something I really want to do. Like, it would not work out. And I was telling my son this the other day, because he's like...
Does he want to be an ice dancer?
No.
Oh.
But that would be fine. No, he's trying to figure out what he wants to do and stuff, and he has ideas about that. And we were talking about effort instead of just talent or instead of dreams, but effort gets you so far. And I said, now, I'm not going to be that mom who says, baby, you can do anything you set your mind to, because it's frankly not true. He cannot go into the NBA. He will fail. He is not tall. He is not skilled in basketball. If he says he wants to be an NBA player, I'm going to say, son, I'm sorry.
Muggsy Bogues, hello.
I'm sorry, but that is not, find a new dream.
I agree with you, though. You can't be whatever you want to be.
You have to be realistic.
Or if you do, you have to sacrifice so much to become that then it's also not you. Like, so
I'm not against sacrifice and stuff. I just it's just that's movie stuff. That's Hallmark Channel movie stuff. Like, I'm gonna be I don't know.
Well, follow your dreams and passion. So
don't we put that in our kids so young?
We do.
And then we set them up for disappointment of you're gonna work at a tax accounting firm copying things. I mean, that's what I did. I'm not, no offense if you're a secretary, like, a lot of people love the organizational side of things and like doing for others.
Like
that
me,
way.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not good at it.
But I'm saying that is a far cry from NBA star, and a lot of parents.
Well, so but this is why instead of telling our kids that, and so the message is we're trying to be encouraging, but the damage it does is that it could be misleading to them or guiding them down a path. And so my thing is then, as parents, our job is to help them figure that out.
So hard.
It's very hard. And so I read a lot of books. So one is Love Language for Teenagers it goes along with knowing your kid. The problem with that is your formative years, there are time frames in a child's life. Once they hit 5, their ability to learn before 5 is like exponential compared to like 5 to 18, right? Because the way the synapses work in the brain and all this, and then you get to that junior high age group, and like their core values are already there, like it's already instilled,
It's
and
built
so,
in.
and then after that's why their friends become bigger influencers, and then you get to your college years, and you kind of find out, you go on your own, you kind of find out who you are. So it's so hard to say at 18 or 17, or if you're in high school, this is who you are. And so for me, it's then teaching them, don't define yourself by your college degree, don't define yourself by what you do. Like, you go figure it out. And I agree, I love what did you call it? The year off? What is it called?
The gap year.
The gap year.
It's
Or maybe years. Maybe there's more than
I don't know
one.
if it's really a thing. I hear that term, and I think year or 2 years, it should be a required working time for kids, where they just have to work a job, get some experience, and then apply to college.
I'm on year 23. So,
It would save everybody a lot of money, like if they would just figure
Right.
it out before they went to college. I know it's a ton of exploration, and everybody, I'm sure, changes their major a million times. It's just
7.
I don't know.
I think 7's the average.
7? I
think
didn't
7
change
times.
it 7.
Well, when we went and toured colleges a few years ago, it's been 2 years now, they were telling us stats, like that was one of them. The average person changes their major 7 times or something
How
like
many times did y'all change your major? That's a good question. I changed my major 3 times.
that. So I started engineering, then I was like, I'm not going to do that. And then I really love psychology. So I entertained that for a while, and then ended up getting business.
But you do that. It's funny
Management.
because you do that. Like as a pastor,
Yeah.
part of your job is counseling, and that's
Well, so psychology is, so I say I'm an engineer, but psychology is getting to know people and what makes them why they are who they are. So really, when I say I love knowing that, I do like that on the mechanical side, but I couldn't do the mechanical side without the emotional side attached to it, right? So I love both, and so and they, been through some training. I'm not a psychologist, but they give you some training on some of that. And
maybe the whole thing is there isn't one thing that you're meant to do, and that's the thing I think we're told.
Allison,
here.
there's one thing we're meant to do.
Thing we're meant to do.
No, there's one person we're supposed to marry. You have to find them in 7 billion people.
Yeah.
There's one true church. There's
one.
I'm just kidding. I don't believe any of
It's
that.
like all this magical destiny nonsense.
Right.
I don't know.
It's nature nurture too. So you are born with certain predispositions to who you are, right? Not that we can't overcome the predispositions, whether they're good or bad. And then you're also brought up in a home and taught things and shown things. And
Yeah.
I think the best thing we can teach our kids is, you can go do, you can choose to pursue whatever you want, but you're gonna have.
You
like
have
you
to
said,
weigh your success and failure.
You're 5'9", Mike. You're not going to make it to the NBA, right? Like and so like I think the reality too is, but you have to. So I talked about showing when people come to you and ask for advice, right? This is what psychologists. This all goes to psychology too. Is that a good pastor, priest, mentor, guru, psychologist shows you a mirror. They don't tell you the answers to things.
I cannot believe you did not play the movie Kung Fu Panda. There's a clip of
Is there?
exactly
I
what
haven't
you
seen
said.
that in forever.
You have seen Kung Fu Panda.
I've seen it. It's just been a long
It
time.
came out when my kids were that age, were like elementary, whatever. And so the very first one, and he's like, the quest is for the secret, whatever, and he's like looking for something, but when he finally opens up, it's a mirror. And it's like, the secret is, there is no secret. Like,
I said that Sunday, yeah.
I can't believe you did not play that clip, because it's exactly.
I need to watch Kung Fu Panda again. Apparently, I'd forgotten that. Well, it's true though. Most of us. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'll talk about myself. My experience is when people show me mirrors, usually I have a visceral reaction.
You go, that's not me.
I
don't do that.
I don't do that. I'm not that. And here's what I'll say to that. When you have that reaction, that probably means you're that.
Someone scratched something in you that set off a reaction.
Yeah.
Scratch is probably not
yeah.
the right word, but did anybody say how many times they changed their major before we get too far?
Chuck was 0.
Of course,
He knew
Chuck. Chuck
from
knew
the
his life from
beginning?
day one. He's got it all figured out.
Paul said 0.
What?
And I said once.
Wow. zero changing the major. I'm impressed. I think our experience may be the unique ones. Maybe it's just us.
Kendall had some good points. One, she said, I watched so many kids who have left home, had space to learn who they truly are, separate from their parents, and then come into their own.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key too.
Maybe we're the problem and not helping
we're always the problem.
whatsoever.
I had a class one time early on when I first started going back to church at Woods Chapel, and one of the first things in the book we were reading was, we're all messing up our kids. Like, know that, own that, and then try to teach them to be able to not be as messed up as we are, right? I mean,
teach us coping strategies for how we're gonna mess them up.
Well, but the whole, Jesus talks about marriage, because in their day, you got married at like 14, right? So his way of talking about leaving the coop and spread was, in marriage, you have to separate from parent. Mm-hmm. So he's saying the same thing we're saying, that we would say college now, right? You have to have that space, which then, though, as a parent, we're going through this right now, right? It's devastating. Yes. They don't need me anymore. They need our money. They don't.
It feels wrong. Oh. It does. But I mean, it's right, and like really the years right leading up to that point prepare you for it, because you're kind of like, get out of my face, because they're. And then it happens. You're like, don't come back in my face. Come back in my face. Because they're trying to assert themselves, and you're trying to hold on, and it's just.
Well, and. My oldest, I don't know, Jelly probably doesn't watch this. Today's her birthday.
Aww.
Ooh. She's 20 today. And so sometimes she says things and she's like, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. You'd be so disappointed in me. I'm like, oh. I'm like, baby, you don't, but it's easy for me to talk about.
Are you going to cry?
No.
Not this week.
Not this week. I'm good. We scar our kids. I think knowing that and then trying to fight it, right? That I don't ever want my kids to do something because they think I'll be disappointed. Like, that's awful. Yeah. Like, nobody, but how many of us do that? We want somebody's approval, whether it's our parents or our peers or whatever it is. And I'm like, I always tell them, you have my approval no matter what. I love you. Like, I texted this morning. I'm like, go take over the world today. Call me when you're not busy. It's literally what I said to her. And oh, it's so hard though. So hard.
It is hard.
Because then they make decisions if they're around us. The more they're around us, the more they're going to make decisions that they think will appease us. Or at least, I don't know. That's maybe an oldest thing too. I'm the oldest. Are you the oldest?
Middle.
You're middle. Yeah. You have an older brother.
Yeah. Ava's already changed her mind once, and she's only been there for half a semester. And she did it freely without talking to me and asking my opinion or anything. So I think she feels free.
Good.
Somehow she feels free.
But that's painful, isn't it? Ooh.
Yeah.
Ava, Angelica, don't watch this. No.
They don't. Their generation is not on Facebook.
They're not on Facebook. That's true.
Okay,
they're on
sorry,
Snap.
Amy. Go ahead, Amy.
Kendall had a good comment. She said she wanted to be a physical therapist, then she wanted to be a nurse. But then she ended up giving up on her dreams and focused on a paycheck. Her degree is in health information management. It fits her, but it's not her passion. So she said the things I do, like mental health advocacy, she's also a car seat technician. She said those are 1,000,000 times more fulfilling.
Did you say car seat technician?
She fits car seats for
like to help young moms.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Awesome? Yeah.
I've known Kendall for a while now, and I didn't know she did that. Yeah. See, you learn something every day.
Your job doesn't have to be your thing. It can be the thing that allows you to have the freedom to do the things that fill you up.
Yes.
That's how I would describe my life now in retrospect, right?
I wish we could all be happy with that, like just settled with that, because it would cause a lot of, prevent a lot of people, like I feel like we just are in knots about what we choose for a living, Sometimes I felt that way when I was in college. I was like a wreck, and I never did figure out the right thing back then, so I don't know. That's a stressful time for you.
I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I don't.
Now, I bet there are statistics on this. Maybe you've read them, I don't know, but I wonder how many people change careers and how many times. Because it used to be, like my grandma's generation, it was like you got into a job,
same thing.
Yeah, you stayed there, you got your pension, you were like, that was your life for however until you quit working. And so it's just not like that now. Like people are so fluid in the things they do.
So I don't know the career change, but I do know people change companies on average every 3 years now.
Okay.
So I have read that statistic.
So I wonder about field of study though, or field of study.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
Like your occupational field.
Yeah, well, because not only did they stay in the same field, they would work for the same company.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my aunt worked for TWA for like 50, right? I mean, for forever. And
Well, I thought about this the other day and it was kind of depressing. Like, as long as I've worked up till now, I have at least that much more to go. You know what I'm
that's
saying?
really depressing.
I know! I felt like I had a whole nother lifetime before, like, the age of 40, and I did a certain thing.
Right.
I was an audiologist, and I was an for like 15 years. Okay, 15 years. I'm 44. What am I now?
Yeah.
And I have at least
Allison
20
just
years
had
to go,
a
y'all.
birthday last week.
I did have a birthday last week, but there's still 20 more years to go. Can you imagine doing the same exact thing for that entire 40 some odd years that you are working? Like, that seems unimaginable to me, that you would be stuck.
Yeah,
doing the
because
same
I haven't
thing.
done it. So
yeah.
I just changed
But
5
that's
years
how
ago.
it
Yeah,
used to
6 years
be.
ago.
It was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
people just didn't switch that stuff like we do now.
Well, think about this. 2050 is as far away from us as 1990 is.
Oh, we were talking about the other day with the oldies station.
It's not playing 90s.
Todd said it's still the oldies station, but they're playing 90s music. When I
Any young
listened to
person
the-
right now is like, what is happening?
When I listened to the oldies station, it was 50s and 60s
Yeah.
and 70s.
Haley
Yeah.
Bryson is watching.
Who?
Haley Bryson.
Hi, Haley.
Oh,
Love you.
Now she is in that generation where my daughter roughly, she's a little
Yeah.
older, but so somebody is on Facebook in that generation. That's good. I've
Yeah.
tried to get Ava to join Facebook so I can like spy on her and such.
Haley, she's watching. She had an explore. What do you call it?
Gap year?
A gap year. Haley had a gap year. We've talked about that before. Yeah. I don't know. Haley, did you figure anything out in that gap year?
I think it's so valuable.
I'm
Like,
calling her out on Facebook right now.
the kids
That's
would have the
interesting.
freedom because as parents I feel like we are just, you get into that pressure mode of, oh my gosh, my kid's a freshman, I got to start planning for when he's a senior, and then you go through all the things the school has you do, and it's this track and everyone wants to know where your kid's going to college. Maybe they don't need to go to college.
Oh, I'm such a big proponent of.
Maybe they need to find some other thing that they're going to do and not give into the system that funnels every kid into college. It's not
Well, I'm big on education, but
Yeah.
that doesn't have to happen via college.
right. You
Like,
can
we're-
be educated
Yeah,
in
I
many
read
ways.
a book a week right now, right? And I encourage my kids to do the same. So there's lots of ways to educate. I am all about the trades. I'm all about, there's other things in life. There's entrepreneurship if you want to, and you don't need, college has its place, and I understand that, but this emphasis that we have to do everything this way, and the linear progression of
Yeah.
at 18 too is where I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you know what you,
That's a lot of
I've
pressure.
clearly changed mine a couple times, right? How do you know? How could
That's
you
a lot of
possibly
pressure.
know?
You got anything out there, Amy?
Oh, some good comments. Well, Kendall's been at KU for 22 years, so she said she's not the average when you were talking about switching jobs.
Good for you.
Yeah, wow.
Chuck was talking about one of the ideas that he's been studying lately is how leaving home and striking out on your own, being independent, isolates us from community, and how it used to be that family units helped raise your kids. And so he said he passed up a job in Ohio a few years ago, and now he's really glad he did because during the pandemic he's been here with his parents. And
Yeah,
they've
well, it's
helped with the
true.
kids
So there's a fun story about that.
Different cultures are different about
Because
that.
Chuck asked me to pray about that job. And I said, I'll pray about it, Chuck. And when he didn't get it, I said, my prayer was answered. I joked, that's not really how I prayed, Chuck.
Aw.
But I remember having that conversation, and I'm so happy that Chuck and Andrea are here in our community, and the kids, like, yes, that's...
But don't you agree that culturally that's very different in other cultures where they don't kick people out? Like, that's not how it goes.
Well, in other cultures, there's multi-generations in a family.
Yeah,
Like, we're
they
the only
live
one that,
together.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and just the simple idea of when you lose community in the home, we're going to talk about this on the next sermon series, not this week, but the following. When you lose the community in the home, it just spreads out to everything else.
Like you isolate from everything, is that what you mean?
Well, when we don't sit down to have, so in the 50s, 60s, and some into the 70s, like you had dinner at the dinner table, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so that community in the dinner table, the table is significant, and we'll get into some theology on this in the next few weeks, but it's significant because that's the only place where we're all equal. It's the only place we come together. And when you lose that at home, when we don't, and I'm guilty, we don't do it but once a week, right? I mean, that's about all we get. Sunday afternoons, we're all sitting around a table and we eat. But when you lose that, that spreads out into all other aspects. So when you lose the community at home, it starts there, but then it grows out, right? So we're going to talk about that. How do we find that? How do we reclaim the table at home, and then in our workplaces of work, and then in the broader sense? So
What else do you have, Amy?
Well, it's 12:30.
I know we started like 10 minutes late, so I was letting it go a little bit. So
I feel like you should at least bring it around to like a little more about, I like what you said about the beauty in each of us being able to create new things. So what does that mean as a closing thought in your mind? What's the encouragement here for us?
when I'm trying to formulate this. When I used to, I'd have a list every day. And this is why I still have my list every day. And there's some satisfaction in checking things off. But when I participate in things that we're creating something, and I don't mean wealth, right? I talk about the creation of wealth, and I think that's a myth. But when we create things, and specifically I was talking about in the church context, so when we create new ways to reach out to people, when we create new ways to love people,
New relationships.
When that happens, like that's not the the dopamine hit from checking a box. That's I believe we experience joy, happiness. I believe Jesus said this, and that is the kingdom of God. Like that's heaven on earth when we are participating in those things, and that taps into, I believe, a different nature, a different side of us, and it's not linear, it's not logical necessarily. So if we talk about it between heart and mind, right? And that's accessing this, and when we can do that and participate in that, I believe we find something, and we're tapping into something, and that's why there's this side that we can do that all the time. I just don't think you can do it all the time. That's why we have to set, we have to be intentional about the things we do.
Very purposeful, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be your job, folks.
So just make time and create that margin where you're doing the thing that you love to do, and it most likely isn't going to be 8 hours a day. It's most likely not going to be your vocation. So, it sounds like I'm plugging the church. The church then exists to help you figure that out and to provide those opportunities, not for just people here, but for everybody, so that we train, equip, and teach you, show you the mirror, and then you can go do the things that fulfill you. Because what I find is you may get, what did I say about time? 45 minutes a day. If you can spend 45 minutes a day doing that, you're probably lucky. And so, and what that looks like for you is different than me. So, I'll shut up now.
Find your gifts, people.
And if you want to know more about that, I love doing, I call it leadership training, but self-discovery is a path that we all should be on. Seeing your own crap, your own stuff, and also seeing your own strengths is a very hard thing to do. And so we always do it together because you and I talked about this last week. You also have to be in a relationship with somebody to ask for, like I always ask for good feedback on sermons, right? Like, and I always want specifics, and then we'll debate about it. Like I did this for this reason, and so. But I think building those relationships, doing that thing, looking at yourself in the mirror is
It helps to have perspective on those things. Sometimes we can't be super objective about our strengths or our weaknesses.
I think it thinks other people, right? We talk about affirmation, and there's whole other. Kendall knows what I'm talking about. She's in this field of some of that stuff. So anyway, if you're interested in that, let us know. We can do something virtually. We used to do them in person, but doing that as much these days, or if we do, it looks different. So if you're interested to know more about yourself, doing that in a group, comment and we'll reach out to you, set something up. Is that fair, Amy? Okay.
Have a good day, guys. Have a good week.
Yeah. We'll see you Sunday. We're gonna talk politics. Should I go stop it now? It's just because I'm on camera. Amy can't stop it.
Yeah, this is gonna be awkward. It's okay.
All right.
Bye.
So peace. Love y'all.